Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art and culture, and this is Billboard Breakdown. Well, isn't this a fascinating development? And yeah, I called it last week. Even though the rest of our chart really isn't all that interesting, everybody's eyes are fixed on the big #1 debut, the sort of return that if you had told me that this could have happened even 5 years ago, I would have called you crazy, and for good reason. And yet, to some extent, it is kind of historic, because for the first time in the history of the Billboard Hot 100, this is the first time that two songs from the same artist ever debuted in the top 10 at the same time. I knew people had missed Ed Sheeran for some time, but they missed him this much? That they did? It's a little bit amazing, at least to me. So let's get into that top 10, shall we? Starting things off, we've got our brand new #1, Shape of You by Ed Sheeran. And it got there just as I predicted, through huge sales and considerable airplay pickups, dominant in the first and not too shabby in the second for a debut song. Although not all that surprising because Ed Sheeran's a radio darling. But where I'd argue the edge really came through was in the much stronger streaming and YouTube than I expected, especially in on-demand. Yes, Bad and Bougie by Migos featuring Lil Uzi Vert held on #2 and put up a solid fight, especially courtesy of its streaming dominance, but its sales, they just weren't on the same level, and Shape of You jumped past it on the radio. Now, all this places Black Beatles by Ray Sherman and Gucci Mane in a bit of an awkward position at #3. Its radio isn't exactly stable, it's been losing sales, and there are weaknesses in streaming that I can see being kind of problematic down the road. But if it's bad for that song, Starboy by The Weeknd and Daft Punk might have it even worse. It held steady at #4, but its radio's been slipping, sales are weakening, and streaming just isn't what it once was. Of course, when you compare that to Closer by the Chainsmokers featuring Halsey, things look a little bit different, as that song might have some radio, but it's even weaker in sales, and it took a sharp dive in streaming to fall to #5. And then we get the next big arrival from Ed Sheeran, Castle on the Hill, which basically caught traction for the exact same reason Shape of You did, to land at #6. Huge sales and surprisingly good streaming, although radio really is struggling to catch up with this one, and when we talk about it, you'll understand why. Now, this has meant 24 Karat Magic by Bruno Mars got pushed back to #7, but that loss might have happened anyway, courtesy of considerable sales dropping and instability in both streaming and radio. And despite its continued radio dominance, something similar might be coming for Don't Wanna Know by Maroon 5 featuring Kendrick Lamar, or at least I hope it is, as sales remain pretty weak and streaming is pretty much non-existent at this point. It's really only here because of the radio. Then there's Side to Side by Ariana Grande and Nicki Minaj, which got forced back to #9 with even weaker sales, although airplay, YouTube, and streaming are keeping it afloat for now. Finally, clinging on to the bottom of our top 10 is Bad Things by Machine Gun Kelly and Camila Cabello. Still here because it's actually still got some life on the radio and its sales compensating for a streaming hit. Shame, I prefer to see this gone sooner rather than later. But when we look beyond our top 10, it was actually a pretty busy week, so let's start off with our losers and dropouts. And I gotta say, outside of losing How I'll Always Be by Tim McGraw, I'm not exactly about to complain that Unsteady by X-Ambassadors or Too Much Sauce by DJ Esco featuring Future and Lil Uzi Vert dropped out. And our losers, well, it's kind of all over the place, but I'd argue it's overall positive. Again, I'm not complaining that Immortal by J. Cole continues to lose down to 97, or that All We Know by the Chainsmokers and Phoebe Ryan gutters down to 92, or that Make Me Cry by Noah Cyrus and Labyrinth lost hard off the gains last week to 66, or Ooh by Young M.A. went to 39, or the increasingly awkward May We All by Flora Georgia Line and Tim McGraw fell to 52. And on the topic of country, Wanna Be That Song by Brett Eldridge slipped down to 57, and Song for Another Time dropped to 76. No surprise given how long they've been around. And on that note, Million Reasons by Lady Gaga fell down to number 96 because we just can't have nice things right now. The last losers we've had are both from Moana, with You're Welcome by Dwayne Johnson falling to 81, and How Far I'll Go by Ali Cravalho falling down to 67. So it doesn't look like we've got another Frozen on our hands, but frankly, I'm amazed they lasted this long. But where things get a little bit weird come in our returning entries and gains. And let's start off with the former category. First, we get What We Want by Russ going back to 98. It's been bouncing on and off the charts for a while, not really all that surprising. Then there's Today by Brad Paisley back in 95. Hell, they need something to fill time on country country radio right now. Nobody's dropping albums. And finally, Call on Me by Starley, a song that I'm fairly certain was so generic that I'm amazed anybody remembered to put this on the Hot 100 at all. But things get weirder from there. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that Water by Ugly God got a little traction at up to 87 off its debut, even if I couldn't stand it. But I'm certainly surprised that Bebe Rexha's I Got You surged up to 63. Then we've got our continued gains. I mean, it's no surprise that Rockabye by Clean Bandit, Sean Paul, and Anne-Marie went up to 51. That song has had consistent momentum all around the world. But then there's Alone by Marshmello continuing up to 60, and I Spy by Kyle and Lil Yachty picking up big to 42. Now, don't get me wrong, I like the song, but I'm amazed something this deliberately small and low-key in its presentation caught on this much. Finally, we've got Moves by Big Sean up to 62, proving that if you want to sound like Drake and be generally boring overall, there's still a market for it, even though there shouldn't be. And also, given that there wasn't really any huge world hits that caught my ear this week, Ed Sheeran basically took over all around the world here. I think we're going to keep this short and go straight to our new arrivals. Starting off with number 100, If the Boot Fits by Granger Smith.
My heart, hope to die. Take a star, make a wish. Yeah, girl, you could be my all night. Dancing in the headlights, fairy tale good as it gets.
You know, when I covered Granger Smith about a year ago, I mentioned that I doubt I would remember his breakout single Backroad song, and I was pretty much right, because until I re-listened to it in preparation for this song, I had completely forgotten that it and Granger Smith had existed. Apparently, he also put out an album that got precisely 0 requests to cover back last March, with this being his next single from it. And you know, I can't be the only one getting a serious Kelsey Ballerini vibe coming with this song. The choppy grooves, the fake percussion on the verses, the very breezy tone, and the fact that Granger Smith is quite literally recontextualizing the Cinderella story for country girls. Okay, he gets a point for originality, and even though Granger Smith doesn't have a lot of vocal personality, he's at least sincere enough to sell something like this. Hell, considering how empty a personality the Prince and Disney Cinderella was, he might even fit the bill there. But if you dig into the lyrics a little bit more, the parallel isn't as exact as it could be, and I'm not sure why. Why swap out the evil stepmother for a father that wants her home by midnight? And where's the fairy godmother? And more importantly, why on the bridge would have her taking off the boots standing in for the glass slippers, when instead the whole primal crux of the Cinderella story is her putting it on? Look, it's more memorable than his last song for at least trying for a unique concept, but again, it's not really all that interesting either. And I can't help but feel this brand of pop country won't stick around for much longer given the way that the genre is trending overall. And on that topic, number 89, Drinkin' Too Much by Sam Hunt.
I'm drink it all till you're not around. Drinking too much, drinking too much. Since you've been gone, I can't get gone enough. I'm on top of the world, I'm going down. I'm gonna drink it all till you're not around.
Look, I'm no big fan of Sam Hunt. He's landed multiple songs on my year-end worst list, and if any of his later singles had charted high enough, they would have easily made the list for 2016. These songs just keep getting worse the more singles he drops. But apparently, Sam Hunt has an excuse for all the sour emotions that made his material so execrable, with this being the apology to that ex that was referenced time and time again on Montevallo. And let's get this out of the way. The song blows on a compositional level at the very basics. The only element of country instrumentation coming in are hints of guitar around the hook, with the rest being these fake snapping percussion, hints of string, and a dank curdled mix that wouldn't be out of place on your average modern hip-hop track, and not a good one, complete with some ugly vocal layering too. But okay, let's put all that aside, and the fact that this is the furthest thing from country music, clearly Sam Hunt is trying for some type of mood here as he's admitting everything that he did wrong for this girl. And yet, putting aside how his verses barely even try to rhyme, especially the first one, and have some of the most flat delivery possible from this guy, the song just falls apart immediately. If you want to apologize for outing personal information about your ex, why do you restate all of it on your verses, including her name? You yourself say that she wants privacy, so why don't you just leave her the hell alone? Well, the answer to that is kind of brutally honest. He's still very much not over her, and the song takes on the feel of him trying to guilt trip her into coming back. From the offers to pay her student loans, to the presumptions and the assertions assertions that she was crying in the bathtub about him after they broke up, to the fact that despite she changing her number and moving towns, he chose to put this out as the only way to reach her, just through the radio. I mean, this has gone past Drake's concern trolling territory, beginning to reach Pat Monahan, Jason Mraz, and Robin Thicke levels of overexposed creepiness. Except somehow worse, because at least those men showed more passion and didn't just admit that singing these songs are just something to do. Not an ounce of self-awareness or dignity, and almost certainly destined to make things worse for this girl in the long term, on top of being an absolutely miserable piece of music. Yeah, fucking terrible. If anyone releases something worse than this in the next, I don't know, 6 months, I'll be shocked, because this is fucking disgusting. Next, number 77, Location by Khalid.
Focus on communicating, cause I just need the time and place to come through. Send me your location, let's ride the vibrations. I don't need nothing else but you.
Okay, so in case you all don't know, something that YouTube has restarted is their On the Rise feature, highlighting YouTubers who are gaining traction, who they like to drive more attention to. Now, for me, I'm entirely on board for this for every reason that you would expect, plus more. It's a damn shame that as of now, it's locked to YouTubers in the United States, but hey, you can hope they can regionalize it and port it abroad to, say, Canada. Just some thinking. Anyway, this feature ended up giving an artist named Khalid the spotlight, and since YouTube is now a factor in the Hot 100, his song Location ended up here. And you know, it's kind of an interesting case. Let me say that right now. I wouldn't quite call this a great song. It feels choppy and a little bit overmixed between the chipmunk vocals and the slightly awkward interjections, not helped by the very staccato cascades of synth and plucks of guitar to play off the snaps and the broken strums punched up by the beat. I like some of the hints of soul swelling up in the background. Makes me think that this could be a little more groove and a little bit more momentum to match the pleading for this girl to send her location so they move past technology and get to the physical. There's potential of that, and you know, points to Khalid for selling the longing for a real connection. I buy his delivery, even if I'm not really wowed that he only picks up a little bit more passion on the final hook. As a whole, it's a little jittery, but it's awkwardly sincere in a way that I can see myself coming to kind of like. I wish it had a little bit more groove and flow to it, but as it is, it's not bad. I'll take it. Number 6, Castle on the Hill by Ed Sheeran.
It's the way you make me feel. It's real. We watch the sunset over the castle on the hill.
So now we have the first of the 2 singles that Ed Sheeran has released off of his upcoming album, Divide, and general buzz has suggested that this is the better song. But here's the thing, a lot of the buzz from critics that I follow suggested that this song wasn't really all that good, of which, yeah, I will entirely disagree on that. In fact, I'd argue this is pretty damn great, mostly because Ed Sheeran has chosen to pull from a part of rock music that has been severely underserved in the pop charts in recent years, and that is U2. Yeah, the percussion is nowhere near as explosive as it would need to be to anchor something in that level. It would need sharper snare drums for that, and I'm blaming producer Benny Blanco for not including them. But between the fast-picked electric guitar work and especially Ed Sheeran's very raw vocals, which I can entirely get behind, this song is clearly aiming to try to swell for that bigger arena rock that made U2 so potent, especially in the 80s. And yeah, I can see the temptation of some to draw parallels between this and Lucas Graham's 7 Years, but Ed Sheeran is opting for bigger framing that's not just focused on him and his self-gratification and ego. This is a homecoming anthem that doesn't shy away from some of his own rough edges and his own failings growing up. And when he comes home, it's telling how disconnected he feels from some of those friends that he left behind outside of memories that they'll never lose, that they share with each other. In other words, oh yeah, okay, it's a blatant U2 worship, and I might wish the electric guitars on the hook roared a little bit louder, had a little bit more swell to it, but you know what? This is the sort of rock song that I can come to really like, and for my first few listens, I'm very much on the way to it, because it is a damn great song. And finally, number 1, Shape of You by Ed Sheeran.
Pull like a magnet do, although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. Last night you were in my room, and now my bedsheets smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. Well, I'm in love with your body.
You know, I have heard so many mixed initial reviews for this track that I didn't know what to think going into it. For one, I heard it was a song written for Rihanna and with tropical house vibes to boot. Hell, reading about how the song was composed, it almost seemed like a fun leftover that Ed Sheeran included out of sheer ambivalence. And yeah, you can kind of tell, as Ed Sheeran's really not delivering the same force of personality as he did on Castle on the Hill. That's a better vocal range for him. But you know what? There's stuff to like about this song. It's nowhere near as bad as I was expecting. For one, this is less of a song for Rihanna to sing and more about Ed Sheeran falling for somebody like her, picking her up at the bar after doing shots and now just coasting off the residual hookup. And it's very clear that there's not a lot lost between the two. Ed Sheeran's in love with the shape of this girl, more for the hookup and less for the conversation afterwards. And it's clear that despite all the conversation that she does have between the two of them on that first date, she wants something more primal. They just want to hook up. I'd say the sheer bravado and borderline arrogance of the song, to say nothing of the vocal harmonies, is slightly reminiscent of Justin Timberlake, but Ed Sheeran's going in a different direction with the damp, tropical backing tones, the choppy guitar work, the rickety hand clap, and the deeper, borderline African-inspired backing tones in post-chorus. I'd say he's got some roots in cod reggae tones, but the tempo's a lot faster and the production is much closer and more immediate. In short, I'm not sure it's really a great song, and I definitely like Castle on the Hill more, but you know, there's a swagger and groove to the song that matches some of the sharp writing that would put it above any number one that's been released since, damn, probably Hello by Adele or Love Yourself by Justin Bieber, which was co-written with Ed Sheeran. I like this song that much. It's actually pretty damn good. So yeah, I'm okay with this being number one for now. It's a solid track. But overall, yeah, I'm not the biggest Ed Sheeran fan, but he brought the goods with these two songs and avoided boring territory like Photograph or Thinking Out Loud. For me, Castle on the Hill just runs away with the best of the week, no contest. And yeah, the worst is easy too. Drinkin' Too Much by Sam Hunt. And if there's any justice, it will crash and burn like it so readily deserves. But overall, I like the disruption that Ed Sheeran brought to the top 10 right now, to say nothing of some real quality. And I can't wait to see where it goes from here. I'm not sure it will stick to number one, but I kind of hope it does. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.